Welcome back, friends. In this video, we'll create one more enhancement of the race car of the highway dash game, sorry, where we will have race car overtaking effects. Now, first, as always, let me explain to you what I mean by this enhancement, and then we can see how we can build this. So, what I mean by this is, it gets clear when we look at our project. So, this is a copy of the class project. Here, notice the car. I basically drive this car. Now, whenever I go ahead of a race car, so the entire feeling is that though I'm stationary, but it looks like I'm kind of overtaking all these cars, but nothing much happens to these cars. I mean, in fact, nothing happens to these cars. I quietly just keep overtaking them, right? On the other hand, if you look at the enhanced project, right? So I'll stop this and I go to the enhanced project. Now here, notice what happens is that I start driving. Um, Notice I'm getting that car. Now what happens when I overtake this car is that, so I notice that the car, okay, you know, makes the sound. So I'll just slow down because the barrier is coming in. But whenever I overtake a car, like now, notice that that car makes a sound, and also, it has this little bit of effect that's coming in, right? So that's what I mean by race car overtaking. Now, this particular, say, bonus idea is a little bit complicated, right? It's because it involves a concept which is a little advanced for which is something we cover in the advanced level, right? So I thought I'll anyway do a short video so that in case you want to implement this, it becomes a guide for you, right? So let's see how we can build this. I'm going to take my original game where I do not have yet this effect. I'll show you that I don't yet have this effect on this project. I'm going to build this game. So here the car overtaking is quite plain, right? Nothing much happens, and the car just keeps moving, right? So car makes no effect whatsoever, right? So I'm going to take this game and modify this to show the effect that I was looking at, right? But before I go there, I'm going to just do a little bit of discussion so that you understand what's really going on here, right? Uh, so question comes is that how do I determine if my race car is overtaking something, right? Remember, this is in our game, the race car is always stationary. Its Y position doesn't change. So I'm depicting this diagram, to sort of convey the situation. Let's say this is my race car. Now, as you know, race car only moves horizontally. The entire illusion that we are moving forward is coming from the scrolling backdrop, which whose speed is basically linked with the race car speed, right? So the faster I move, the faster the background comes down, and it looks like I'm, sort of going forward, right? Now, in reality, I'm stationary, but the other cars which are getting cloned are coming from top to bottom, right? So now, for example, here there's one car. Now this car is going to keep coming towards me. When this car reaches near me, right? Near me in the sense near the race car. When this car reaches near the race car, then we can say that my race car is starting to overtake this car, right? So, for example, in this session, right, in this picture, right? So here, one car has reached maybe from here, probably it's reached here, and now we say that this car I'm overtaking, but there may be a new car right now which is not yet getting overtaken. Right now, this is an important point. Take note of this. Remember, both of these are clones of the same sprite, right? So the other car sprite is what we cloned to create this, the car that's being overtaken, as well as the car that is not being overtaken, right? So basically two clones, but they have some kind of a state, right? So of a different unique state, right? So that's something to keep in mind. Of course, after a while, this car might go, I would have overtaken this car, hence it can delete itself, as already we have code for that. But now probably this car is getting overtaken, and probably there's one more car which I have not shown here, which is not yet getting overtaken, right? So this is the whole point. This is important. So what we are going to really do is that whenever the other car's Y position comes close to the race car, we say that the race car is starting to overtake the other car, which is kind of the situation here. This car's Y position has come close to the race car's Y position, right? So whenever they come to say a certain point, then we say that, okay, now my race car is starting to go ahead. In fact, conversely, when the race car, again, in case your car, race car is kind of up here, you will also find that when this car is left this Y position, then the overtaking is stopped. It's just like what happens in the real road, right? Also, at any given point, some other car clone, right, may be getting overtaken, whereas some other car clone may not be getting overtaken. The other car is the name of the sprite. So the important point here is that each clone, right, remember they are all clones, each clone must have a unique behavior. Now this is something we cover in the advanced lessons. How do we do this? But the whole idea is to use variables only for this sprite, right? So, in case you try this bonus, please make note of this, that we are going to use variables only for this sprite. Now, this is something, in case you are interested, you can look at the snake game going forward, or say Tux of Math, or Fruit Slasher, where these ideas will be developed even further, right? But let's come back to the, to the highway dash game for now. So what I'm going to do, like I said, is that I am going to first thing be in the other car and I'm going to create a variable to tell which clone is being overtaken. And now this is being maintained by every clone. And like I said in the presentation just now, this variable has to be for this sprite only. Now this part is very important. If you do not do this, the whole code will go wrong, right? The reason is I want each clone to sort of maintain its own status, right? So I'm going to say this variable is called, let's say, race car uh, over, let's say, overtaking me. Now the name seems very long, but I've intentionally kept this long because I want you to see from every clone's point of view, right? So every clone is basically trying to see, is the race car overtaking me? And each clone can have a different answer. Like I just showed you, if the clone is, let's say, here, then the answer is no, race car is not overtaking me. If the clone is over here somewhere, then I know that the race car is overtaking me, right? Now, just to emphasize the point that this is a variable only for this sprite. Notice, unlike, for example, accident X, it just showed the name. Here we have other car, hyphen race car overtaking me. So this is a telltale sign whether a variable is for this sprite only, right? Like I said, this is a concept we'll cover in detail when it comes to snake and so on. But for now, suffices to say that each clone will get a different unique behavior thanks to this variable. All right, so now how do I make use of this particular variable that I've created? I'm just going to, first thing first, I'm just going to duplicate this if loop and basically come down to the same exact, sorry, I'll just stop this here. Same exact code as earlier when I start as a clone, right? So what I'm going to do is that every clone, it's basically going to check whether its Y position is coming close to the car so that it knows it's being overtaken. However, it must do this only if it's not already being overtaken, because once it's being overtaken, I don't need to do this check, right? So I'm going to say if, I'm going to put an operator here and say if, let's say, I take this variable that I just created, if race car overtaking me is equal to 0, which means presently it's not overtaking me, right? So if race car overtaking me is equal to 0, what that means is that race car is not overtaking me. Then I look for a situation. So I remove this for now. And I can actually clean up the blocks a little bit, right? So I'll clean up the blocks. So now I've got this condition here. So what I'll do is that I will look for a situation where my Y position has become close to the race car's Y position, right? And the way I do that is really by just saying that my Y position has come, let's say, within 50 pixels of this guy's Y position, and the 50 is just a number. So I can use this AND condition here, right? I'll duplicate. Sorry, okay. What happened here? Yeah. So I'll duplicate this and I'll put this here. So I'll put one more of this AND condition. Let me duplicate here. So Y position. So what I want to do is that I want to make sure that my Y position is uh, within 50 pixels of, let's say, the race car's Y position, right? So what I can do is instead of minus 120 here, I can use an operator, and I'll come to this in a moment. So I'll put an operator here and I'll put an operator over here. And what am I going to put in? So here I want to do Y position greater than, right? Let me just put this code, then it becomes clear what we are trying to do, right? Like I said, we're just trying to figure out if this guy's Y position has come close to this guy's Y position. And to figure out this guy's Y position, we are going to use a block which we have used for setting the darkness sprite as well, which is, this particular block called, say, backdrop of stage. So here what I can say is that I can, this is so painful, right? So I don't want this. I want this to be inside here. I want this to go into this hole. So I'm going to say, I'm going to choose, let's say, not the stage, but the race car. And I want to see the, this is so beautiful. So let me just set this thing up elsewhere and then we can put it in, right? So I would say Y position of race car plus 50, right? Now, how did I get this 50? There's no, no, let's say, magic behind this. Basically, it's to do with the size of the costume and so on. So I'm saying, okay, if your Y position is coming to 50 pixels near me, then I think you're probably being overtaken. And I will, I'll say that your Y position is between, sorry. So I have to put a different operator here. And let's say minus 50, right? So this is just 50 is just a number. So I'm saying if your Y position happens to be between These, in fact, we probably don't need to do both of this. We can just say if it becomes less, then because the cars are anyway going downwards, right? So if that happens, then we can say that, okay, look, now once this has happened, I know that I am being overtaken, right? So I can then go and say set, set, let's say, race car overtaking me to 1, right? Now, important to realize here is that this variable is only for the sprite, which means that each clone is maintaining its own copy, right? Which means that for every clone, this is going to be different. So for some, it's still 0. For the clone that came nearby, this has become 1, right? And once we do this, then I can, add some effect here. I can say, let's say I can broadcast a new effect. I can broadcast, let's say, a message called, say, passing by, right? Maybe I'll just create a new message called, say, car passing. Or we can call it car overtaking or whatever, right? So I'll just call it, say, car passing. Now, what I want to do is that I want to create some kind of an effect on that specific clone, right? So how do I figure that out? So I can say when I receive, say, car passing. Now I must first figure out. I must tell exactly which clone I'm looking at. So remember, this broadcast message is going to go to every clone. I do not want every clone to act up, right? So what I'll say is that I'll put in a control loop. Let's say if say in an operator. So if, let's say, race car overtaking me is equal to, say, 1, right? If that happens, then what I want to do is that I will, you know, here I will say, okay, if this is equal to 1, then probably I can say, maybe I can just add a little bit of graphic effects here. I mean, it's just some simple things that I've done, but you guys can do more if you want to. So I'll say set, say, fish eye effect. So fish eye causes to bulge a little bit in the center. So I'll say set fish eye effect, say, let's say maybe, say 50 or something, right? I mean, just a number. And then I can also play car sound. So there's a, sorry, there's a sound that I have used here. So I can say play sound. So I've got this car. Okay, so not uh, okay, so not so I can add a sound called car horn. Let's say here. So I can take a sound called car horn. So I'll say play sound car horn until done. Right? So play sound car horn until done, so that uh, this effect happens. So it kind of makes a small sound. Right? Now the important part here is that this particular behavior broadcast will happen only for that one clone, which for where this variable has become 1. Right? Now, of course, when the game first starts, I must set this to 0 so that the clone gets started with this situation, this variable set to 1, right? Now we are going to look at all of this in a lot more detail when we do snake game and so on later on, but right now it's good to just understand what's going on, right? So I'm going to say race car overtaking me to 0, right? Now let's see how this thing works. So I expect that the car which I overtake, so like for example this car, notice it did that behavior, right? And so did this, right? So it kind of makes a small sound, and also you notice the bulge on the car's effect, right? Now just one thing here I want to show you, that let's say I did not do, I did not have this local variable. So let's say I did not put this inside this condition. So when I receive this broadcast, then what will happen is that whenever I overtake any car, right? Let's say here, so what's going to happen now is that, oh, if I say I'm overtaking this car, so I expect that to behave. But notice both the cars start showing that effect, right? So that's not correct, because I want only this car which is being overtaken to show me that wording effect, right? So for that reason, I must put this inside, this particular condition, right? And this variable being only for this sprite makes all the difference. Yeah. Now, just to be, like I said, once the car has been overtaken in this game, in fact, the car gets deleted, so we don't really need to do anything else. But in case your Y position of this car is slightly higher, so that there's also room, behind this car, so you can just, just to be sort of on the, let's say, a little bit more detailed, you can, oops, I think I have to be careful here, right? So let me just clean up these blocks. Just to be a little bit more detailed, what you can also do is that you can say that, okay, look, you can have one more condition here. I can duplicate this, but I don't really think for our game it's needed, but never mind. For the sake of completion, we can just do this, right? So I can say if race car overtaking me is, say, 1, and let's say Y position is less than, let's say, maybe, basically what I'm trying to do is that I'm saying that, okay, look, if the race car has gone quite a way down, I mean, sorry, so I don't need this entire, this is really confusing. Okay? So I'm going to say if Y position, yeah, this is what I want, right? So all I'm saying is that for that particular clone, if the Y position has become much smaller than this guy's Y position, then I'm somewhere down, right? The reason we do not need for this game is because anyway the clone will get deleted. But maybe your race car is slightly higher up, and then you don't want this race overtaking me to be set to zero, so you can then set it back to zero, right? And that's it, right? With this, the effect is done. Let me just clean up these blocks, and we can just see this once again, right? So I've got this thing set up, right? And notice this car shows me the behavior, right? Now only the car overtaking shows the behavior, right? And this is all happening because we are using variable only for that sprite, right? So this is like I said, slightly advanced concept. But if you do try this, it'll be nice, right? You'll get to understand some things about cloning, right? Okay, so I hope you found this useful. Thank you. Take care so much. Bye bye.